It's funny how often we hear about employee experience
Yeah.
these days. It's like everywhere you turn, right? But I get it, Sometimes.
Sure.
I wonder if it's really a new thing or just like another HR trend.
Well, yeah, the term itself might be trendy, but the idea behind it's been around for a while.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, it boils down to recognizing that employees are a company's greatest asset
Yeah, that makes sense.
and that their experience, their actual experience at work has a huge impact.
On the bottom line. Right.
Exactly, the bottom line.
So for someone who's like hearing this for the first time, how would you even define employee experience or EX?
Well, think of it this way. You know how companies are always trying to perfect the customer experience?
Right, make it as smooth as possible, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So EX is basically the same idea, but it's focused inward on the employees.
Oh, I see.
It's their whole journey from the moment they apply for a job to, how they feel about their daily work, their relationship with their manager.
The company culture, all that.
All of it, yep. It's all part of EX.
That makes it much easier to understand, actually. One of the sources we have today uses this sports team analogy.
Oh, interesting.
They're saying that if you have employees who don't feel valued or supported, it's like having a team, a sports team, where the players just aren't motivated.
Right.
Like they just aren't going to perform at their best.
Exactly. And a winning team, it attracts the fans and sponsorships.
For sure.
And a company that has a strong EX, well, they're going to attract and retain top talent.
Yeah.
And this isn't just theoretical either. One of the sources actually cites a stat that 83% of companies now consider EX a top priority.
83%.
Wow.
That's a huge number. So it sounds like this isn't just a passing fad then. Why is EX becoming so crucial, especially as we look ahead to 2025?
Well, the world of work is changing so rapidly. There are a few key trends that are really pushing EX to the forefront.
Okay.
Like, for example, the rise of remote and hybrid work.
Right.
That's making it a lot harder to create that sense of connection.
And community.
Yeah, the kind that's so essential for a positive employee experience.
Yeah, definitely. Because you're not having those water cooler chats or team lunches when everyone's working from different places.
Exactly.
You have to be much more deliberate about creating those relationships.
You do. You have to be intentional about fostering that sense of belonging.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's AI.
Oh, right. Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, the growing influence of AI. It has so much potential,
In what way?
Well, it can automate tasks and free up employees to do more meaningful work.
Okay.
But it also raises concerns about job displacement and the need for people to reskill. So companies really need to figure out how to leverage AI in a way that enhances the employee experience.
Rather than diminishing it.
Exactly.
So it sounds like EX is becoming even more important in this rapidly changing world of work. But, and this is a big one for me, how do you actually measure something as subjective as experience?
That's a great question.
I mean, it's not like you can just slap a number on it, right?
Yeah, right. It's tricky. A lot of companies are struggling with that, figuring out how to measure it.
Yeah.
You can't rely on the traditional metrics like employee turnover
Or engagement scores.
or engagement scores. No, they just don't give you the full picture. You have to go deeper and really understand what shapes how employees perceive things and how that all comes together to form their overall experience. One of our sources actually mentions this study. It was on Korean employees.
Oh, okay.
And it found that their, cultural and physical experiences at work had a huge impact on how committed they felt.
Really?
Yeah. But their tech experience didn't seem to matter as much.
Huh. That's interesting.
It really shows how complicated measuring EX can be and how important it is to use tools that are sensitive to different cultures and industries.
Yeah, what works for one company might not work for another at all.
Exactly.
So it sounds like there isn't just one right way to measure EX.
Right.
Are there any practical ways that companies can gather this information?
Well, all of our sources seem to point to 5 best practices.
5, okay.
The first one is combining quantitative and qualitative data.
What does that mean?
So you could use employee surveys to get a general sense of how the workforce is feeling.
Okay,
But then you also need to allow for more open-ended feedback.
I see.
Things like focus groups or maybe a suggestion box.
Oh, okay.
That way you get the numbers, but you also get the stories behind the numbers.
Right.
It's like you need both the telescope and the microscope to really see what's going on.
That's a great way to put it. What's number 2?
Don't just measure in a vacuum. Benchmark against industry standards to see how your company stacks up.
Okay, so see where you stand in comparison.
Yeah, If you know the league average batting average, you can see if your team's hitting is good or bad.
Gotcha. Benchmark. What's the third one?
This is a big one. Take action based on what you find out.
Don't just let the data sit there.
Exactly. Share the results with your employees, and then, this is the most important part, implement changes based on their feedback.
That makes sense.
It shows them that you're listening and that you value their input.
Yeah, and I bet that makes employees feel a lot more motivated, knowing that they're being heard and that their feedback is actually leading to real change.
Absolutely. Okay, number 4 is continuous measurement. EX is constantly changing, it's not static.
Right, it's fluid.
So you need to be taking regular pulse checks.
To stay on top of things.
Yeah, and to adjust your approach when you need to.
Makes sense. So what's the 5th best practice?
This one's especially important for you. You need to involve employees in actually co-creating the solutions.
I love that idea, co-creation. How does that actually work in practice?
Well, imagine you put together a team, people from different departments, including frontline employees, and you have them brainstorm solutions for improving the onboarding process.
Oh,
That's co-creation in action. It makes sure your EX initiatives are grounded in the reality of your employees' experiences.
so it's not just executives making decisions in a conference room somewhere.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels ownership, where everyone feels empowered. And this leads us perfectly to the link between EX and employee belonging.
So we're talking about more than just making employees happy then.
Way more.
It's about creating a workplace where they feel valued and understood, where they feel like they really belong.
That's exactly it. Think about it. When you feel like you belong somewhere, you're going to be more engaged, you're going to be more productive.
More committed to the company's success.
Right. It's about having that intrinsic motivation that comes from feeling connected to something larger than yourself.
Yeah. And I imagine that sense of belonging is even harder to build when you have a remote or hybrid work setup.
You're absolutely right, it is. That's why it's so important to make an effort to create those opportunities for connection, even when everyone's physically separated.
So what can companies do?
Well, they could do virtual team building activities, for example,
Oh.
or have regular check-ins,
That's a good idea.
or even just create online spaces where employees can connect with each other and share their experiences.
So we've talked about measuring EX and co-creating solutions with employees. And it seems like both of those things are really important for building that sense of belonging.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm curious, how does all of this work in the context of 2025? Especially with AI becoming such a big part of the workplace.
That's a great question. And it really brings us back to that balance we were talking about earlier.
Right.
AI can absolutely enhance EX, but only if it's used thoughtfully.
Okay.
Imagine you have AI tools that can personalize onboarding for new employees,
Oh, that would be cool.
right? Or maybe tools that connect people with the right learning opportunities.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
The important thing is to make sure that technology is actually helping employees, not replacing them.
Right, so it doesn't make them feel like their skills are becoming obsolete.
Exactly. It's like AI needs to be designed with people in mind. Like, how is this going to affect the person who's using it?
That's a good point. It's like a human-centered design approach to AI.
Exactly. And that ties back to the idea of co-creation.
Oh, right, getting employees involved.
Yeah, if you get employees involved in designing and building these AI tools, they're going to be a lot more useful and they'll actually address real problems.
That makes sense.
Remember that study about Korean employees we talked about earlier?
Mm-hmm.
It found that technology didn't really make them feel more connected to their work.
Huh.
So even though AI is becoming so important, we can't forget about those human elements that really foster belonging.
So it's not just about having the latest, coolest tech.
Nope.
It's about understanding how it's going to affect people.
And making sure that technology is actually serving the needs of your employees.
Yeah, I like that.
And don't forget, creating a strong sense of belonging is good for business.
Oh, right, how so?
When employees feel valued and connected, they're going to be more engaged.
And more productive.
Exactly. And that leads to better results for the company. There's actually research that shows that a strong sense of belonging can make people more loyal to the company,
Oh, wow.
and they're more likely to be satisfied with their jobs. And in today's world, where it's so competitive, that's a huge advantage for companies.
That's true. So it sounds like employee experience, or EX, might be a bit of a buzzword.
It might be, yeah.
But the idea behind it is super important, especially as we look ahead to 2025.
Absolutely.
It's about building workplaces where people feel like they matter, where they feel understood, and where they feel like they truly belong.
You said it perfectly.
And to do that,
Yeah.
companies need to really understand what their employees are experiencing, work together to come up with solutions, and make sure that any technology they use is actually helping people.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The future of work is human.
I love that.
And by prioritizing EX and focusing on belonging, companies can not only attract great talent, but also help their employees reach their full potential.
That's a great point to end on. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of EX today, but hopefully this deep dive has given everyone some things to think about, maybe even some inspiration to make some changes.
I hope so too.
Remember, creating a positive employee experience is a journey, but it's definitely worth the effort.